As recently as this spring, conventional wisdom in Washington was to expect a red wave in the midterm elections. And given the issues facing our country, inflation, energy prices, crime in the streets, and chaos at the border, conditions were ripe for Republican victories. And President Biden's approval ratings are historically bad. But since the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade in June, Democrats have worked overtime to turn the fall elections into a referendum on a single issue: abortion. Will they be successful? Should Christians care about how the overturn of Roe impacts this fall's elections? Joining me now to discuss it is Connor Semelsberger, Director of Federal Affairs for Life and Human Dignity at FRC. He joins me in studio. Connor, good to see you today.
Yeah, glad to be here with you.
Well, tell us, is the effort to turn this election into a referendum on abortion one that will work? Can you make it about the single issue of abortion? And if they do, does that help Democrats?
Honestly, my advice to Democrats would be make this election all about abortion, because I just don't think it's going to be the salient issue that they want it to be. We heard for a while the summer of rage to get everybody out there and hope to propel election victories like they had back in the summer of 2020, and that just never materialized. So now they're sort of from D.C. trying to propel people to really care about abortion, have all their congressional incumbents talk about the abortion issue and their governor's candidates talk about abortion issue, because they're reading into certain special elections or some random statewide elections that they think show, hey, let's keep talking about abortion. But so far, we just don't see that that's really going to materialize much. It might on the margins here or there in a close race. But when you look at a lot of the polling, what people really care about, it really isn't the fact that states can actually finally protect life for the first time. People really care about inflation, things like his student loan actions yesterday. Those are the things that people really care about.
We know that midterm elections are all about turnout and what issues motivate your base, right? And we have seen anecdotally a couple of examples, because there have been votes, there have been primary elections, there have been some special elections, there was even a referendum, there was a vote on a constitutional amendment about abortion in Kansas, right? So we have some data which indicates that at least marginally, there has been some increase in the turnout for Democrats. Now, there's also increase in turnout, actually a greater increase in turnout in voter enthusiasm, it appears, for the Republicans, because they're mad about a whole bunch of things. The Democrats are mad about abortion. But as to how this issue is framed and described, I think we know what Democrats think about abortion, right? On demand, taxpayers pay for it, no co-pays, no nothing, 9 months of pregnancy, maybe even a couple days later, whatever that's their position. Everybody knows that. Do we know what the Republican position on abortion is?
See, and that's where the problem lies in. It's not so much that the Democrats have created this great ground game. I think part of what you're seeing some of this high turnout is you look to some of the congressional leaders and Republican leaders around the country, and there really isn't a unified message. And that's not the behest of groups like ours and others that have been trying to get, these pro-life elected leaders to really lean into the issue rather than away. But unfortunately, there's just been mostly radio silence. And the danger there is you let the Democrats frame the debate. Oh, all Republicans want to do is throw women in jail and criminalize doctors and the whole nine, right? And that's just the furthest thing from the truth.
Well, and that is the danger, right? When there is not a uniform, at least say, here's our agenda. We want to, ban all abortion before 15 weeks, right? Which polling says Americans would support. You could even get back to 6 weeks, a heartbeat, and there's evidence to think a majority of Americans would support that. But when you're silent on the issue, what the abortion lobby comes in and says, all they want to do is throw women in prison if they have an ectopic pregnancy, right? And that's kind of the perspective that they're bringing to that. So from a purely political perspective, it's a little bit harmful for pro-life people on the ballot if there's not a unified message, isn't it?
Yeah, and you talked about turnout, right? They are seeing, hey, we can get a certain demographic, younger, maybe college-educated women that feel like a right has been taken away. We can turn them out if we talk about abortion, and hopefully that's their goal. Not hopefully, but that's their goal. The Republican side, you would think the same thing. These pro-life Americans that have been fighting for 50 years to finally pass laws to protect life, they finally have their opportunity to elect leaders that can actually protect life in the womb. They, too, want to turn out and vote for candidates that they know will protect life, but there has to be leadership to show, hey, elect me because I will stand for the unborn and even care for mothers and young children after they're born too.
There are undoubtedly some really confident, loud, courageous pro-life voices, right? But when we talk about the political parties, I would say that the Democrats are much more enthusiastic about their position on abortion than the Republican Party is generally. That being said, Senator Marshall has introduced a bill that I want to get your comment on to say that the federal government cannot pay for the abortions of illegal immigrants. Why is that not already prohibited by the Hyde Amendment?
Yeah, so speaking of the Hyde Amendment, that really only covers certain funds. And that's the beauty and the downside of the Hyde Amendment. It's an annual thing that has to be renewed, and it only applies to our health and human services programs like Medicaid and the like. Unfortunately, ICE runs under the Department of Homeland Security. They have their own funding, and there is no Hyde Amendment there. Republicans did try back in 2017 and 18 under the Trump administration to get a policy just like the Hyde Amendment to apply to Homeland Security funding so that detainees could not be used for abortions, but unfortunately, when that bill got to the Senate, that language got stripped out. But today, now we have Senator Marshall introducing a bill that would codify into law, so no annual riders, no annual fights, but would say our taxpayer funds cannot go to Department of Health and Human Services or Homeland Security to pay for abortions, to force federal employees to perform abortions, or pay for travel out of state for abortions. So we're really glad to see this bill come to light.
Connor Semelsberger, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be with you.